Hello, everyone. It's Conversations with Moji. And today we have another very interesting topic and something that I'm sure will actually bless everyone. You'll be inspired by this story. So with me today, I have Dan Abdul. Dan has been on the show before, and today he's going to be sharing a very unique story. I call it Against All Odds, and it's all about how he was faced with an unexpected challenge and how he came up, how he came out of it. So he's going to be telling us how it all started, what really happened, how was he during that time, and how has it been since then? So Dan, welcome once again to Conversations with Moji.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For taking out this time to be here.
Yeah.
So we go straight into it. Tell us what really happened.
Yeah, a number of years ago, this was back in 2004. At the time, I was still enlisted with the Army, and we had gotten deployed. So I'm based out of Minnesota. Our unit was going to deploy to the Middle East. So we went down to Fort Hood in Texas for some training before we would leave. Well, so I was a flight medic, so I was on a Black Hawk, part of a Black Hawk crew, and you have, 4 flight personnel on board, and of the flight personnel, I am there to provide advanced medical care to injured soldiers. So by nature of that job, it's always somewhat risky. Figured, if I ever got injured or something, it would be along those lines. Well, one day I was on duty, got done, and the way my memory works, that's kind of where it ends. What I've since been told and come to understand was I finished my duty for that night and then was driving back to the barracks. And I on the road, I was probably going about, 60 miles an hour, and another individual struck me head on, also doing about 60 miles an hour. And so I was hit head on. My car spun and went down a 20-foot embankment. And I was trapped in the vehicle. I was trapped in the vehicle for about an hour, where rescue personnel came out and extricated me from the vehicle. And I was airlifted to a trauma center where I went into a coma at some point during all of this. They took me to surgery. Was in surgery, I'm told, for about 10 hours while they struggled to stop the bleeding. They took out my spleen, my liver was injured, and a number of other things. And I suffered a very serious brain injury as well. And my left leg was completely crushed. So where my memory comes back is about 5 to 6 days later, coming out of the coma and seeing some family members there. I mean, my memory goes in and out at this point. And what was interesting was, you come out, you're sort of confused as to, what happened. Again, the last thing I remember was being on my, we call it first stop duty, meaning if there's an emergency, you're the first aircraft to go. And so all of a sudden I'm laying in this hospital bed. So I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together, and I'm thinking, well, did the helicopter crash or something like that? I would keep asking people, and they would keep telling me, you were in an accident, you're okay. I'll come back again. I'm like, how's everybody else that was on the helicopter? And they're like, you were not in a helicopter crash, you were in an accident. I'm like, okay. 5 minutes after that, I'll ask the question again. So anyways, at that point, it took several days for me to be able to just be awake for any extended period of time and start to remember stuff. But obviously at this point now, once I've passed the point where they were worried about, am I going to live or die? Which was the interesting thing because there's a whole process when a soldier is killed on active duty, and they'd actually already started that process. So when my family was notified, it was basically, you need to get down to Fort Hood because we don't know if he's going to make it or not. And then when I made it past the first 24, 48 hours, the question was really, how severe is his brain injury? And it was just a matter of time. Nobody knew. As I came out, they would set different milestones, and I just kept beating it. And it was interesting because another thing that I was told was there was it was actually a female that was brought in, also had a head injury, and they felt that her head injury was a lot less severe than mine. So my mom and my sisters just started doing was, they just sat down by me and would just pray every day. And they said that when they were praying that they could see that my heart rate and things like that will sort of be responding almost to the fact that I knew they were there. So the doctors were really surprised when I woke up from the coma. Interestingly, the family of that other girl then came to my mom after I woke up from the coma, and they asked my mom to come pray with their daughter because they weren't religious or anything, but they knew that we came into that hospital on the same day, and I had a more severe head injury, but she wasn't coming out of her coma. So I think that was the first really interesting thing, I call it the first miracle, quite frankly, was just to even wake up from that. The other thing was my heart was beating when they were doing the surgery and all of that was with almost no blood in it. So till today my heart is injured from that. And so what's called your your ejection fraction, mine is rather diminished because of the damage that my heart sustained. But, the heart just kept beating. And the doctors, when I woke up, they looked at me and just said, you're a marvel of modern medicine. Was his point. He said, there's really no medical explanation for why you're alive. But then now I had a new goal because, my left leg was completely reconstructed and I needed to get up and walk. That was my goal. I had to be able to walk again on my own. And it was interesting because, the really good friend of mine that was in the Army with me, he knew me, we worked together, and, I was always very physically fit and everything. And he says the first time he saw me try and get up in bed where I needed people to assist me up and everything, that was really hard for him to see. And I can only imagine how it was for my family. So that just started the whole process of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and just trying to beat every goal. Because, the first thing they told me is, I'd never fly again. I'd never be in the military. And I had a hard time with that. But then as I was recovering, the other thing that on the civilian side, what I did was I'm in technology, and I was told I wouldn't be able to do that either again. So all of these things that, you quote unquote used to define yourself, now you're being told that you can't do that again. So I really just, focused on working hard in my recovery and prayer. And interestingly enough, the physical aspects of learning to walk again, while it was hard, that was not the hardest part for me. The hardest part for me was things with my brain, being able to say the alphabet completely without getting stuck.
No,
you
no, sorry.
be able
Uh,
to.
Can I come in? Let
Yeah.
me come in. You said, so you were given goals. The first thing was they were surprised you even came out of coma.
Yep.
Yeah, because they didn't expect, because they already started the process of, okay, you were gone while on active duty, but then you recovered, you came out of coma. And so while you're in the hospital, you said something about your leg. I'd like to know how much damage was done to your left leg.
Yeah. So the way it happened was so if you're sitting down, this is your knee and
Mm-hmm.
your legs here. What happened is the femur went into the dash and the femur exploded.
Oh,
So most people are used to seeing a break. What you see if they did an X-ray of my leg is femur comes like this, and then it's a bunch of fragments, and then the rest of my femur goes down. So the femur literally shattered, and I had the obviously my knee itself too was very badly damaged. Um, but then I had what's called or compartment syndrome, basically. So there was so much swelling in the leg that um, it was starting to cut off circulation, and I was going to lose my leg. So they did what's called an emergency fasciotomy, where they basically just take a surgical blade and they just cut up your leg so that your leg has room to expand and swell. And so just from, the mechanism of that injury, how violent it is, and then someone slicing up your muscles like that, and then the knee also being, all my ligaments in my knee are actually cadaver ligaments now that they transplanted back. And then I have a solid rod through the femur, and then I have screws that go through at the top and the bottom. And then I have pins that hold in the new ligaments around my knee. So both my knee and the femur are reconstructed. So, and this was over several years that they did the surgery. So there was a surgery I had that night, but I think 3 days later, I had another surgery on my leg, and then I had one a year later and one another year after that. So
okay.
it took a long way to get the leg back functioning.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 24 when it happened.
So
So
were you married?
no, was not married at the time, no kids. So it's just a young soldier.
Okay, so tell us. So as you were saying, so you got to the point where you were out of the hospital. How long were you in the hospital?
So I was in the hospital for about a month, and then I went into an extended rehab
Okay.
facility for probably another 3 weeks before I went home. But the time I was spending in the hospital, I had to get my lungs to be able to function again. It's one of the things that is not always well known is when anytime your body goes through that kind of trauma and you're laying up in a bed not using it, it's like everything just doesn't work on its own anymore. So I'd had a machine breathing for me for a while. So it takes a while before I'm able to get the lung capacity to be able to breathe on my own. So every day people come in, you have all these lung exercises you have to do. And then, my first goal was to be able to sit up in bed, and then unassisted, and then you're able to do that. Then the goal is to be able to stand and sit back in bed. Then you're able to do that. And then the next goal is to be able to walk to the door with a walker and back. And you accomplish that. You set a further distance. And then eventually, what they're looking for before they're able to release you is, are you able to do what is called activities of daily living? So, can you move around with the assistance of a walker and things like that? Can you dress yourself? Obviously assisted. Uh, then yeah, you can do that. Can you, with someone assisting you, can you, wipe up yourself and things like that, just to be able to say, okay, outside of this facility, can you live a somewhat normal life? So, it's really weird when, you go from someone who's jumping out of a helicopter trained to do that in a combat situation, and now you're worried about, can I go to the bathroom and back with the assistance of someone? Um, so that was hard for me to take and be able to get used to. And then probably more painful was just my cognitive challenges that I was having. Couldn't remember hardly anything. You tell me something 5 minutes from now, if you ask me, I'd forgotten it. Um, I mean, it took a while, but a lot of my memory, even pre-accident, was just not there. And so slowly I was getting that memory back, and things like that. So that was probably, yeah, I would say that was my biggest challenge, was just dealing with a memory loss. Um,
What kind of person were you at that time? Because I'm aware that when people feel they're unable to do things that they used to do, they become very nasty, cranky.
yeah,
Nobody wants
I
to be
was,
around them.
yeah, I was a very, very angry person, I would say. Um, there, it's interesting because most people would come and to see me and they'll say, well, thank God you survived. And for a while, I was really angry that I survived, right? And, um, people would say it could have been worse. And I really hated that statement because they look at it from their perspective. It could have been worse if you died. Well, at that point, I felt it would have been better if I died, right? Because from my perspective, what I was going through was just a little bit too much. And, I didn't think I was going to be able to have any sort of normal life beyond that point, right? I couldn't walk on my own. I couldn't think. I was told I'm not going to be able to do any of the things that I used to do that I sort of identified myself with. So yeah, you're right. I was a very angry person.
Angry with God also.
Yeah, I would say I was angry with God. I was very angry. You start to think about why what you deserve for that to happen. So yeah.
So obviously now you can remember things.
Yeah.
So what happened? How did things change?
Well, it was a long process. I started seeing psychologists, and and that was helpful. I, started working with a different occupational therapist and to help me with my cognitive challenges that I was having. Um, and so, over time, you just gradually start getting, it starts to come back, right? And the fact of the matter was, no one could tell me. They didn't know how much of the brain damage was going to be permanent. So I really didn't know if I'd be able to live a normal life. But I think that's just part of the miracle. It just seemed like every goal I set for myself, I just kept beating them, and obviously with God's help. But yeah,
So you actually believe it was a miracle,
I I I I know it was a miracle.
you
I mean,
know?
the doctors say they have no medical explanation for why I survived that night. So the only other explanation is divine intervention.
Fantastic. I mean, for the other girls' parents to have called on your people to please come and pray with them, it showed that they saw the difference. They were like, how is it possible? Wow. Even right now, you told me a bit about this story before, but now I'm like, truly, there is a God.
Yeah, there definitely is. And we never understand. I still don't understand why I had to go through that, but sometimes there's a perspective in life that I know that I would never have if I didn't go through that. And you sort of look at it and say, well, what blessings can I take away from it? And you focus on that rather than on being angry and being resentful.
What blessings? So, what blessings do you think you took away from that?
I think it's helped me to have a better relationship with God. I've had my faith was strengthened by it. But I think as a person, one of the things that I do is I work with a lot of people that are have different mental health challenges, and I would never have been able to relate to them. So I think that has been a blessing. Um, but also, it's just giving me a sense, a different type of strength where anytime I'm faced with anything challenging, I just look at it and I go, well, it can't be more challenging than that. Right. And if I could make it through that, with God's help, then I can make it through this. So
That's
definitely.
fantastic. That's really awesome. That's really, really awesome. I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, someone else would have remained there.
Yep.
Someone else would have had the pity party and remained. I mean, with every excuse, my leg, don't have a leg. But you went on. So tell me now, you're no longer in the army, as I believe.
No, I got a medical discharge from the army, so I was medically retired.
But you didn't stop there. You're not just on, you're not, you are working. You are, I mean, just tell us more about you work. You're
Yeah.
not just sitting back at home and hoping that your sisters will send in the money.
Yeah. No. Interestingly enough, I was told, that I wouldn't be able to do this work in the technology field anymore, but that was really my passion. So I really just focused on how else can I do it? And I really started to focus more on the management aspects of technology, which, um, didn't quite require the same sense of, I always think about it as a cognitive challenge,
Mhm.
right? Not saying that being an executive is easy or being a manager is easy, you know. And so I focused on that and just kept on challenging myself. When I went back to get my MBA, I had to get um, special adjustments and things that were made for me to be able to get through it, which was never an issue before. And so, I just kept challenging myself and I went on. Today I'm the chief technology officer for a health insurance company. And, I still, every day I'm alive, I have to take a ton of medications and I still see a psychologist on a monthly basis. I still see a traumatic brain injury doctor every 3 months. I have to get about 30 injections in my head. Um, and there's a lot of medical personnel in my life that enable me to be able to just live, a quote unquote normal life.
Well, I mean, you don't sound, I mean, I don't sense any anger. I mean, seeing you, one wouldn't even think that you still have to go through all of that because you're managing your life well. And you went on from there, you got married, you have 2 kids.
Correct. Yeah, no, it wasn't, to be fair, it wasn't all rosy and you go from here to there. I'm a suicide survivor, right? So at some point, I felt like I was better off dead than alive. And, I did try to take my own life. And by God's grace, survived that. And, so it definitely has been difficult roads. Now I look back, and probably the biggest thing that is different now is that I think about my wellness as a whole person wellness, right? So I focus a lot on my mental health as well as my physical health. For me, going to the gym is not about just, you know, wanting
That's
to,
you want to.
it's both for my mental health and my physical health. I practice mindfulness and a bunch of other things around, and that's what it takes to stay healthy. And the anger, I just realized I have to set the anger aside because I spent too many years being angry, and you're no fun to be around when you're angry.
Mm-mm, 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 mm-mm. Wow. Thank you for sharing this with us. I believe someone will be inspired by this. As I told you the last time, there are many young people that, they feel everybody owes them.
Mhm.
But I like what you said. You didn't just stop there. You decided to go back to school.
Yeah.
It may not have been easy. I can just imagine. I don't know what I mean. Even when I feel, I usually I used to have asthma,
Mhm.
terrible asthma attacks. And I know those times when I'm having the attack and I can't do the things I usually would do, I know how I feel.
Mhm.
Now to think of someone that you couldn't recite the alphabet,
Oh,
and this is a graduate. You're a miracle.
yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think part of it is just the acceptance that it wasn't due to any special skill or strength that I had. I mean, it's just by the grace of God, right? And, and that's how I look at life now and just keep taking it.
By the grace of God. Wow. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for sharing. I'm really inspired. And as I said earlier on, I'm sure many more people will be inspired. And just keep at it.
Yeah,
You're an inspiration. And the thing that you're able to give back to anyone that is going through mental challenges, it's a big deal.
yeah.
It's really a big deal. I'm glad that you could channel your energy that way, and you're doing well.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
doing well. And I'm glad I met you.
I'm glad to.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And yeah, is there anything you'd like to say to us?
Well, if anyone watches this and they're going through their own challenges, just, at this moment, it's not going to feel great, but just let your mind and your body feel what it needs to feel, right? Just understand, know that deep inside you, you have that strength, and it's not going to feel at all like that. But, there are folks out there that, are with you, even though you might feel extremely lonely at that time. So,
Thank you. That was for me. And I'm taking that for me and for everyone that is, watching. I believe you have been inspired by this and you can do it. We all can. We all can, whatever the situation is, we can. So that's been my message to you today. Thanks for watching. And on to my next guest. Bye for now.